In this video, we will be explaining the difference between call by name and call by value. The most common one used is call by value, where all the parameters of the function are evaluated before it is passed to the function. The parameters are evaluated to their most simple and reduced form. Then the function runs through with the reduced parameters. This way, the function will access the same value of the arguments each time it runs through. But when we want a function to have parameters that we don't want evaluated until it is called inside the function, we will use call by name, where it initializes the function before evaluating its parameters. As the program executes, it then evaluates the parameters in step until it reaches the complete evaluation. In other words, each time the function calls the parameter, it must recalculate its value. Depending on the function, this recalculation of parameters in each step could lead to a completely different result than running the same program with call by value instead. This method of calling is relatively rare compared to call by value, and some programming languages do not support it at all, such as C. Algol 60 was the original language to have both call by value and call by name. However, call by name was not a big hit, so they dropped it in Algol 68, but still provided a way to go about something similar, which most languages then followed. Now I will show you a few examples that show the differences between call by value and call by name. In this first example, we have a function where we are outputting x plus x. We will start with call by value. So here we want to evaluate the parameters before we execute the function, which counts as the first step. So we have x equals 4, which does not need to be calculated, y equals 7 minus 4, which is equal to 3, and z equals 2 plus 3, which is equal to 5. Even though we will not be using y and z in the function, we still need to evaluate them using call by value. When the next step is writing out the equation, which is 4 plus 4. Then we go to the third step, which solves the equation to be 8, giving us a total of 3 steps. Now we will go through call by name. For this, we do not need to evaluate all the parameters, only the ones being used in the function. In this case, all we are using is x, which is already a single number, so we can write down the equation using 4 as x, and making our first step be 4 plus 4. In the second step, we are just solving the equation, which is 8. So then, for this example, call by name only uses 2 steps, while call by value uses 3. So call by name would be the faster and cheaper choice for solving the problem. Our second example represents a function that outputs the multiplication of variable x times variable y. The parameters we chose for this example that we believe will help you grasp the concept of call by name and call by value are x equals 3 plus 1 and y equals 2 times 4. First, I will show you how call by value would act with these parameters and this function. Call by value evaluates the parameters before it calculates the function, as explained in the previous example. So we would have x equals 4 and y equals 8, instead of x equals 3 plus 1 and y equals 2 plus 4. And they would stay that way while the function is used. Because of this, the function takes in 4 for x and 8 for y and starts solving. The next step is the actual multiplication of 4 and 8. And for the third and final step, call by value will output the solution of the multiplication, 32. On the other hand, call by name doesn't evaluate the parameters before the function is executed. Instead, the parameters are evaluated every time the function is called as so. For the first step, call by name will take in the unreduced parameters, and it will evaluate them to their reduced form one by one. So, first, we have a function that takes in x equals 3 plus 1 and y equals 2 times 4. On the second step, only one reduces, so we would have x equals 4 and y equals 2 times 4. For the next step, we reduce y to 8. After this, the actual function gets executed, multiplying 2 times 4, and in the final step, outputting 32. As we can see, compared to the first example, call by value will be faster than call by name, as long as the same parameters are being used in both cases. Our third example is a little bit different. The function here takes in a single integer, I, for the argument and returns a triple with the integer I listed 3 times for the output. For our input argument, we set the integer I to be equal to a randomly generated number from 0 to 9. As you can probably guess, call by value and call by name will handle this very differently. For call by value, the argument is calculated before the function itself is executed. This means our integer I will be a randomly generated value and return that same value 3 times for the output once the function executes. In our example, you can see that 3 is generated and listed all 3 times for I. In the case of call by name, however, the function executes before the argument is calculated. Therefore, when the function is evaluating the output, a new random number will be generated for each value of I. Because of this, instead of one random number, like in call by value, our function returns 3 separate random numbers when using call by name. As you can see in our example, these values are 7, 1, and 4. This is a good example of how call by value and call by name not only can have differing runtimes for functions, but also entirely different outputs for the same function based on which call is used. So, after showing you those 3 examples, you might be wondering, when is it better to use call by value and when is it better to use call by name? Since different functions will run better in call by name or call by value or even be the same. Depending on the parameters and the structures of the function, call by name or call by value can be faster to compute, or they could each lead to different results entirely. Call by value can be faster when all the parameters are used in execution of the function and they are able to be reduced further. Call by name can be faster when the parameters used are not reducible, but any parameters not used in the function are reducible. Because call by name does not evaluate all parameters at execution, it will save some process time by ignoring the unused reducible parameters. So, now you know the difference between call by name and call by value, and how to compute each one. Thanks for watching!